and welcome to Tools in the Shed, a podcast powered by CarsGuide, ready to rip into car stuff that has caught our eye this week. I'm James, and with me is Chesto.
Howdy.
Who's going to fill us in on the dawn of an exciting new automotive era.
Yes, I am.
And Matt.
G'day.
Who's been behind the wheel of a monster truck.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Not a real monster
And
truck.
Yeah,
don't burst the bubble.
Oh, sorry.
Keep watching.
Stay
keep watching.
tuned.
And we'll catch up with our favourite stargazing, pickup truck revealing, eccentric entrepreneur in this week's MuskWatch. So stay with us. First of all, some feedback. Now, Vapory Abyss on YouTube said, I agree with everything Richard said.
Yes.
Crying, laughing emoji. So
How do we read that then?
Richard said a lot of stuff. And I think we were
lot.
last week talking about the things that drive you nuts
Oh,
on
yes,
the road,
that's right.
So
We were
Richard
too.
had a laundry list of things.
He did.
Basically everything. He was hating on everything.
He
Every time he
doesn't-
gets in a car.
He doesn't actually like driving
He's in a
all
rage.
cars.
Could be.
He's very tightly wound too behind the wheel, Richie.
be.
Don't worry about him.
So Dakulk says, "G'day, mates!" Exclamation point. Thanks for the great job you're doing helping me prepare mentally for our move to Sydney around
great.
Easter 2020. Now, he says he couldn't agree more that wagons are better than SUVs and
yeah.
people movers. We had that little discussion last week. He says, I also want to kindly correct you on one of the most often repeated urban myths. Sticking to the slowest right lane in Europe is by no means a rule, rather an exception. You can see it maybe in Spain or Portugal, but not around the big cities and in the Nordics. But here in Germany, forget it. There's an unlimited Autobahn southbound from Frankfurt, the A5, 5 lanes at times, and they're all occupied by Ford Fiesta drivers who don't give a damn if you're approaching at 150 or 250 kilometres an hour. They'll not give way while overtaking at 1 km/h speed difference. Neither will E63 drivers.
Oh, there you go.
So this is a bit of home truth here. This is literally a person on the ground. I'm driving 5 kilometres an hour faster than the guy on the right, so I have my holy right to stay on the leftmost lane as long as I need to.
Wow.
Although I could stop on it and be gone in seconds.
So that hasn't been my experience, I must admit, but I'm very happy to take some
So he
local
said
knowledge.
that's probably why the bastards are thinking what the bastards are thinking. Cheers from Frankfurt.
Well,
so
you'll have to come and see us in
Cook
the
is going to
bunker
be
when you
with
come to
us
Sydney.
in Easter next year.
Oh, great. Welcome.
Twigda comes
mate.
back and says, hey guys, you leave the rat alone. Now, I think we need Twigda to expand on that. I'm not
Yes.
100% sure what he means there. We did have a story on Oversteer about tiny rats driving tiny cars.
Yes, we
Maybe
did.
he's referring to
have
that.
been that.
That was
Might have
authored
been.
by our very own Georgia.
Could have been
Let us
talking about
know,
Richard.
Twigda.
He is a Gunners supporter. He's located near Arsenal in London, and he just connected with Richard. He says, Richard, I knew you was a legend. Because he comes from Camden Town in London, but he's in Ballarat.
How good.
What on earth was you doing in the grime and depths of Camden? Anyway, he's comparing notes with Richard about a whole bunch of stuff that they used to drink in a certain pub with Amy. It turns out it was Amy Winehouse.
Amy Winehouse.
Okay,
Wow.
that they were both having to drink with. Maybe they were in the pub together, didn't know each other, never got each other's name, but were right at the same table with Amy Winehouse.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Is this like when I had lunch with Steve Renoff in a Brisbane food court
Wow.
when he was ordering food in front of me?
Steve Renoff,
The
Renouf,
football player.
Renouf.
Yeah.
That's
So-
almost as big as Amy Winehouse.
And Wendell Saylor was there too. So
a big deal.
Dell.
the Dell was there as well.
Anyway, he also has a crack at Australian pubs. We can't do it like they do
No, we
in
can't.
England.
I
I totally
100%
agree
agree.
with that. He says no one can do blah, blah, blah. Sausages and batter and curry sauce and chips. But now I'm getting greedy. He goes, peace. Peace out. We're all, fingers up, victory symbol. So thank you, Twigda. Hammer rocks. Now, we had
Hammer's
the
back.
discussion. One of the peeves we had was lane discipline and whether people should move over and stay in the slowest lane, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Twigda says, I frequently drive the M1 motorway, Sydney to Newcastle. So that's north out of Sydney. Very pit peeve are middle lane hogs, insisting on staying in the middle even when not passing other vehicles. Either they're ignorant of the rules and or are simply lazy drivers and don't care. The signs keep left and less overtaking is not just for show, Because of these hogs, I often find the very left lane on the M1 flows quicker than the middle lane.
It does.
I
Yeah.
agree. I
Yeah.
call it the fast lane.
Yeah.
I drove that very road last Friday after the podcast, heading north out of Sydney.
Just because you wanted to experience
Yeah,
it.
just wanted to get a bit of bit of Richard rage. No, but I found the same thing. I spent the whole
Yep,
time in the left lane flying past people, but I think that is illegal. Aren't you not allowed to overtake?
Dakulk, our friend in Frankfurt, chimed in and said, replying to Hammer, I often have to resort to doing the same here in Germany, although it's illegal, and there is absolutely no police enforcement of the right lane rule whatsoever. Is overtaking on the left actually permitted in Australia? And Hammer comes back and says technically it is. So I haven't had time to do the homework on this, but he says I've never been booked, nor anyone I know, from overtaking slow vehicles travelling in the middle lane on the left lane, touch wood.
Yes, so the deal, I think, and look, my driving record would suggest I don't have the firmest grasp on road rules, or anything for that matter. But I think if you're in the left lane, provided you don't exceed the speed limit, and you're allowed to do whatever the hell you want. So if someone else should slow down in the middle of the right lane and you're still sitting on 110, you obviously you don't have to slow down with them. You can keep on going.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because Paul Victor, long-time listener, first-time commenter, came in and said, now he's obviously a heavy truck driver.
Yeah.
So he has a different point of view. He says, I have to take you to task saying that trucks should stick to the left lane. Since a truck is as long as about 15 plus cars, and the total lack of cars to merge, they don't merge properly.
Yeah.
So when he's in the left lane, they stuff him up. So he's got to get on the brakes.
I've seen it
and
so
then
many
he's got to
times.
get back up to speed, which uses a lot of fuel.
Yeah.
So for him, it's problematic. He wishes, I'm sure, that it was better, but reality is what it is.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. No, I totally disagree with you. Make the lanes of the highway dedicated to a minimum speed regardless of vehicle type.
Yep.
So I think, Paul, that's a fair enough point. I hadn't thought of that how much you do have to get on the brakes and slow that whole big rig down to accommodate dopes who don't know how to merge.
Absolutely.
So many
this
dopes
is a
don't
rant for
know how
another
to merge.
podcast, but I think we just need to give truck drivers a bit more space. How many times in the city do you see truck drivers pulling up to a red light and a car who doesn't want to sit behind them dives in front at the last minute without quite realising how much it takes to pull up a thing
I was
that
saying
size,
this. I was talking about this to Mal earlier today. There's a great series of YouTube videos, if you've got time, called The Punisher. All right, now he's a bus driver in Moscow, and what he's done is he's put a push bar on the front of his bus so that if you pull in, no damage to his bus. He's just going to ram you.
Keep on going,
So it's a dash cam from just above him on the front window, and you see these lunatics pull in at the last minute and just get hammered and get out like, what? He's just...
whatever to do.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The Punisher.
The Punisher.
Anyway,
Moscow.
Final comment is Cody GH. Do some more about Suzuki Jimny, please. Cool videos. Keep up the good work.
Great.
So I think we'll just put up, for people watching on YouTube, a gratuitous picture of a Suzuki Jimny.
Yes,
hey,
absolutely.
I can provide that picture.
You could provide that picture
of my Suzuki
classic
Of your very own
my
Jimny.
classic, my 2007,
That's
which
right.
I changed the wheels on last week.
Oh, did
so now they're black, not white, and it looks tough.
Same rubber though, or did you go for...
Yeah, same rubber, because it was new tyres recently. So.
But you made the tyres white.
No.
Rims black.
Rims black.
Tyres still black.
Tyres still black.
Black on
Yes.
black. That does seem to be the trend.
It looks cool though.
Yeah,
It looks
why
tough.
not?
It's the norm.
It's the norm.
Tell us
Now,
if you think it looks tough.
Speaking of
well,
trends
you're going to be wrong if you don't
and
think it's
trends
tough.
that may be changing,
Yes.
Chesto, you've been reading the tea leaves, and
I
what
have.
is coming at us?
So it's actually, usually I'm in here ranting about something, but today I'm in here celebrating something. And that is the fact that it does feel to me like we are once again on the cusp of an affordable performance revolution.
Yep.
I'll tell you why. So you would all remember the glory days of the 90s. When,
I hate those expensive performance revolutions. By
yeah,
the
they're
way.
the worst, guys.
So it's
They
an
are the
affordable
worst.
performance.
Affordable,
revolution.
perfect for people like us,
Yep.
in touch with the common man,
Yeah,
etc.
that's right.
So you remember the 90s where Japan was kind of like this powerhouse of sort of affordable performance. But you think about all the cool cars.
MR2,
MR2s.
what was it called? CRX? No.
Yeah.
It's little
Yeah, because it came back as the CRZ, I think. Yeah.
Nissan Exa.
Yeah.
Or
But
various others.
Even like Silvias, Integras, all the Type
Yep.
Rs that were out there. There was
Yep.
so much cool stuff. 300s and, Fair
Yes.
Ladies, all that kind of gear. It was all this cool gear. And then
Yep.
for some reason, Japan went really, really boring for quite a long time. So Nissan, of course, keeps rolling out Z cars, but they leave them on the streets for
A
2 or
long
3
time.
decades before replacing them.
Yeah.
Toyota's done virtually nothing. Nissan's moved away from it. Honda does the occasional Type R, but that's it. Anyway, the point is, though, I think we are on the cusp of a comeback. And I'll tell you why. So Toyota, for example, has embraced this idea of bringing performance back to their cars. We know that already, and we've now got our first taste of what that'll look like. So it starts with the Yaris GR, which is Gazoo Racing, of course, which is going to be their performance brand.
Yep.
So that car was supposed to be unveiled at the Coffs Harbour round of the rally,
Yes.
but of course was delayed because the bushfires burning there. It's now expected to be revealed in Japan in January next year, as I understand it.
Okay.
Before going on sale later next year. And we are starting to learn a little bit about that car. So the Yaris is going to pack a turbocharged 3-cylinder engine, and it is going to be all-wheel drive.
Right. Now, people of a certain age will remember the Great Gazoo was a character in the Flintstones
Yeah, I remember
cartoon,
the Great Gazoo. Yeah,
Little
yeah.
green Martian guy
Yeah.
that came and flicked it. Loved him.
I'm going to be honest with you. It's not the coolest performance car brand, is it? Gazoo Racing. And then it gets worse. The GRMN, which is Gazoo Racing Masters of the Nürburgring, which is a bit...
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure. Anyway.
NAF?
Bit naff, yeah, exactly. So we don't know exactly how much power that Yaris is going to be producing, but remember, in that field, you need to be making about 150 kilowatts and 300 newton meters to keep up. So that's where we'd expect that car to land.
Yep.
And that is the first of their GR products.
Yep.
And they have already said they're going to GRify essentially the entire range.
Yep.
So and up to and including the Hilux, everything's getting a sort of go fast badge. There was some talk recently that perhaps the Corolla wouldn't get it. I'm calling BS on that. It's definitely going to happen.
If that's happening, Corolla will be in there.
It's absolutely going to happen. That'll be next. But that's not all. So Hyundai at the LA Auto Show this week revealed their own. Sorry, Matt?
Hyundai.
I say Hyundai wrong. So at the LA Auto Show released their own sort of vision of a performance future. And this thing is really, really cool. It's called the RM19. And it is a mid-engined, two-door performance car that the brand promises will rival supercars in terms of its handling and performance. Now,
fantastic.
Turbocharged 2-litre engine makes about 291 kilowatts. It's the engine from the brand's TCR cars, only without the TCR regulations, which meant they had to tune it down. So they've now been able to tune it right back up again. Feeds the rear wheels. It's got a 6-speed gearbox, sequential gearbox. Yes. And as I said, rear drive. So that car at the moment is just a concept, but on the stand, Hyundai's executive said this thing's going to production.
Wow.
We're going to get this.
Fantastic. That's exciting.
So now we've got Toyota making cool cars. We've got Hyundai making mid-engine performance cars. We've got their in-brand in general doing amazing things. And then last but not least, we've got that Toyota and Subaru have joined forces, as they have in the past, before, of course, on the BRZ 86. But now Toyota owns about 20% of Subaru. Yeah. So we're yet to see the new WRX. We're yet to see the new STI. But the heavy rumours out of Japan is that Toyota will have their own badged versions of those cars.
Really? And as well as another 86 BRZ?
Yeah, so we know already there's a next gen. So there's an updated one coming, and we know there's a total new generation car coming.
Yep.
But there's also talk of Toyota doing, the WRX being a two-door coupe, and Toyota doing their version of it.
Yes.
And of course, the rumours would suggest that it's going to be called a MR2 perhaps, or a Celica.
Midship runabout two-seater specialty.
Correct.
Yeah. That's where MR2 comes from.
Oh, there you go.
Absolutely.
See, they've always had
that draws back
catchy names.
That draws back to you got a comment at recent launch
Celica.
where Celica could return.
Celica's
all-wheel
back.
drive Celica.
So
well,
all-wheel drive, turbocharged, two-door makes a lot of sense if that's where WRX goes. Makes a lot of sense if that's the new Celica.
Yeah. So, there is a lot happening.
And the stories in Japan, they call that car, which I absolutely love, the Super All-Wheel Drive, which is its sort of code name at the moment. But I want that to be its actual name.
I think it's encouraging and quite refreshing when you think about the breadth of what various car brands around the globe are offering. You tend to become dominated by, everything's going electric. Okay, that's terrific. Huge benefits for the environment, etc. Maybe not quite as engaging to drive at times. And then you think about autonomy, taking the driving thing away altogether. But there will be a market for people who want to have fun in a car and want to drive a sporty performance type car.
Absolutely.
So that's evidence right there. It's really quite refreshing.
And this is a rant for another time, but have you noticed that autonomy's sort of really left the conversation over the last 12 months? Nobody's talking about it.
Except Elon Musk.
Because they've gone to that point where they've gone, it's going to be happening by 2020. There's going to be cars with no steering wheels. Oh, actually, no.
It's really hard.
It might not happen by 2050.
Mate, the people are saying it just won't happen.
Might not happen.
I had a chat with a bloke from Nissan whose job it was getting the rover on Mars. So here's the guy who knows a thing or two about autonomous driving.
Yeah.
He
was
said
it SD1 or earlier? P3, P4 rover?
Because
getting a rover on Mars, that's a heavy car.
I mean a dog.
Getting rover on Mars.
It had to fit a little helmet. But he just basically said, guys, it's not happening. It's impossible. There will never. He calls it a human in the loop system. He said there will never be a time where there's not someone in a call center on the other end of the camera telling the car what to do, even if it's not.
That's an interesting phrase, isn't it? A human in the loop.
Human in the loop system.
Yeah.
When I was with Toyota at the Tokyo Motor Show earlier this year, we went to the TRIAD, which is their research institute for advanced development.
Hold on, Triad.
And their focus is on everything future, and they basically said that this world of having a car that can drive itself in any situation using maps but no person behind the wheel, it's a dream. That's impossible. You can't pick up a car that's been taught to drive in Tokyo and put it in Mexico City and go,
No.
you got to do this.
No, you can't.
Or Mumbai or
Right.
Sydney.
Right.
You know,
Right.
everything's different. And
So
it's
it's
almost
it's basically a racist kind of concept.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
And is the Triad still funding their development through protection rackets and the like? Or where are they getting their money from?
No, they're very good at their job.
But we've moved right off performance now. But
which is perfect.
rest assured, performance is coming, and affordable performance, which is my favourite kind of performance because I can imagine actually owning it one day.
Yeah, sure.
I also heard a little rumor that there's going to be an MG sports car actually going to happen, which will be an affordable sports car.
Yeah.
So-
But in true fashion of the current owners of the MG brand, it won't be called MG.
Yeah,
They'll
well-
call it something else because their SUVs are called MG.
Yeah.
So the inverse of that.
But I did a story on this week where they won't just be an SUV brand. So
There you
MG Australia is looking to expand into all different niches in the market.
Okay.
And sports cars
is one of them.
an
It's good.
obvious one for them.
Yeah, yeah.
So a question for without notice then, has there been a good Chinese brand sports car, like a good, or even like a hot hatch? That's something they haven't, to my knowledge, they've never really ventured down that path yet, have they?
Same here. I don't think so.
I don't think so either. I think they are more focused on environmental elements because there's been such heavy laws around EVs in China.
emissions and all that.
And there hasn't been, I don't think, traditionally that they've been a driving country.
Yeah.
They're not so keen on like the enthusiast side of things like Aussies are. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe there is one out there. If you know of a Chinese supercar or a hybrid supercar.
The thing in trying to respond to that is I know so very little about a lot of the domestic brands that are producing cars in China.
there are so many.
Goodness knows what might be out there, actually.
But rest assured that Hyundai had never done a performance car either, and then they did the N, and it was a game changer. So it can happen.
Yeah.
Good one. Fantastic, Chesto. Thank you. Now, Matt,
Yes.
we're going to move to yourself a different type of performance.
Yeah, it is a very
Performance
different
under pressure.
Yes.
Let us know what you've been doing this week.
Been towing a caravan with a Ram 1500.
Wow.
So the Ram 1500 diesel, it's the first time they've had a diesel version of the Ram 1500, which is, if you're not aware of it, a very large ute or pickup truck, as they like to market it.
Size of a block of flats.
Yeah,
Yes.
so it's about half a metre longer than a Ford Ranger. So it's a big vehicle.
Yeah.
And that's the appeal of it. It's got a huge cabin. It's got a really long tray. It can also tow a lot of weight. Weirdly, though, the diesel version can only tow 3.5 tonnes.
Yeah.
Which is what a Ranger or a Navara
Or a Hilux,
Yeah, so maybe not a Hilux. I don't think they can do 3.5.
Oh, they can't do 3.5.
3.2 or 3.1 or something.
Much more, 4.5.
4.5, which you can
the
get
petrol one.
in the petrol version.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were driving along. A bloke in a Ranger pulled up next to us, wound down the window. Hey, mate. Yeah, okay, what's up? He goes, I'll swap you. I said, what do you mean? He goes, well, you can have this and I'll have that, and that can tow my big caravan. I said, oh, well, it's only got 3.5 tonnes, so it's the same as the Ranger. He goes, you can keep it.
Yeah.
So, all right. But that's the mental bit that I struggled to come to terms with.
Any indication as to what's behind that difference?
I've asked. I haven't been given an answer.
I think I have some slight answer because I think even though it's a new diesel for us, it's still the last gen diesel in the States, and I think the new gen diesel over there does have a higher towing capacity.
It will have, when the new generation model comes here, it's expected to get a higher towing capacity. But currently, legally in Australia, it's limited to 3.5 tonnes. And on the 4.5 tonne version, you have to fit a larger tow ball, a 70 millimetre diameter tow ball, where this is a 50 mil, so it's a standard diameter.
Okay.
So it's not capable, or not legally capable, but I tell you, it would be capable. It is
3.5 without
so
breaking
the
sweat.
diesel, are the cylinders in a V or are they?
It's a V6 turbo diesel, 3 litre.
Yep.
With 179 kilowatts and 570 or 569 newton meters. So it doesn't pack the most power and torque from a 3 litre V6 in the ute segment, and Amarok V6 has more. The Mercedes X-Class has more torque, I think, or more power. It's one or the other.
Okay.
But it was just effortless because it's got a big footprint and it just gets along the highway pretty comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
You never feel like you're struggling with the weight behind you. We only had about 2,400 kilos all told behind us, which isn't isn't necessarily pushing the boundaries for that vehicle, but it does indicate what most people are going to max out at if they're looking to tow
If
something.
you're towing a standard caravan.
Yeah.
So it wasn't an Outback Dove.
No, it wasn't.
Jayco Outback
No,
Dove.
it wasn't. It was a Jayco Journey, though.
Jayco
there you go.
Journey.
Yeah.
Do you stay in the caravan when you do this, by the way, or do you just tow it straight back?
Sadly, our mates at Jayco Nowra, they give us the car for the caravan for the day, and we're allowed to do what we need with it during the day.
And you hand it back just full of empty bottles.
Yeah, it's a mess.
Chip packets all through
Oh,
it.
it's a mess. But we do. It's got a trade plate on it, so legally you're not allowed to, because it's not registered because they don't own it.
Yeah, because they sold it.
Yeah, so they have to sell it and then you can register it. But anyway, that's by the by. But the caravan itself towed beautifully. The Ram, as I said, I just kept coming back to the fact, well, if you don't need a ute this big, then why would you buy this one?
With
Because it's
that
only
towing capacity.
capable of this much.
Yeah.
And in the conclusion, I basically said, well, you got to spend about 50 grand more than a Ford Ranger to get into this thing. And unless you need the size, you need the extra tray length, or you need the interior cabin size, you really wouldn't do it.
But that's kind of, isn't that sort of the even the performance car argument? People who buy like 3.9 second cars and then drive them in the city, they never need that performance.
Yeah, you never need
But
it.
it's nice to have it. I don't think Ram falls into that category. No one needs it.
You're right, which is the bigger conversation
Yeah.
around emotion versus pragmatism.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
emotion often wins.
Yeah, exactly.
But the justification is pragmatism.
Yeah,
I bought it because of the towing capacity and also the resale, and I love the quality. Actually, it's because it's an effing big truck.
Yeah, exactly.
And you just love the way it makes you feel.
And I like
your
pulling up at
mates-
barbecues in it.
That's
Simple
fine,
as
that's
that.
fine.
Yeah, your mates love you for it.
Yeah.
But cars have been sold like that since the dawn of time. There's nothing wrong with that.
And that's the cool thing about, I think the Ram brand has really hit on a part of the market that was being missed by a lot of brands. And, it's an expensive vehicle, $110,000.
Whoa.
But they've sold 2,500 Rams this year.
Mate, they're killing it.
Which is huge.
But I have said this in a podcast before. Ram, canary in the coal mine, and deserve all the credit for making that happen, because I was convinced it wouldn't work, and I was entirely wrong. But they're not going to have that game to themselves for too much longer. We know now Silverado 1500's coming, F-150 is going to come, Nissan Titan will be here, Holden's GM's looking at doing something. So give it time. Give it time.
Super. All right, fantastic. Thank you, Matt. Now, we are going to move to our garage and the vehicles that have been occupying it during this previous week. Jesto, we're going to start with you.
Yes.
You've been in a classic.
Performance
You've been in an icon.
Icon of the hot hatch world. I've been in the Golf GTI.
Ah, you lucky bugger.
Yeah, it's funny that thing actually. So 46,190 is the cost, 180 kilowatts, 370 newton meters. It's the power and torque, which is plenty for a hatch. It's going to spend most of its time.
370 is a lot of torque.
It's fine.
That's for a car that size.
So much torque. Much torque. Too much torque even. But I must admit, so I have enjoyed my time with that car immensely. It's very easy. It has that wonderful dual personality factor of being a bit zippy when you really want it to be, but otherwise you can very easily just drive around
quite
calmly
docile.
and cruise.
It's like any other Golf, rather.
Yeah, exactly. But I do worry that it's starting to pay the penalty for its icon status, I guess. It doesn't, because you're so used to them, you know what to expect. It sort of fulfills its brief so well. It lacks a bit of that excitement factor, maybe. Whereas say an i30N, for example, it's this new thing. It's manual gearbox.
Right.
It has this booming exhaust. It sort of has that. I don't know, the fizz, as Jeremy Clarkson used to say.
I suppose the icon status plays to a strength in that people would have hankered for one for the longest time.
Yeah, that's right.
When I've got the money, I'm going to get a GTI.
Yeah, exactly.
It has that kind of status.
Exactly.
Whereas I suppose Hyundai's still on the rise to try and get to that kind of desire, that aspiration.
But I, to put it another way, and I'm not disparaging Hyundai here at all, but Hyundai has that surprisingly good factor. Like you get it and you go, oh, this is better than I was expecting. Only because it's like Hyundai's first performance car.
Yes.
Actually, they've really ticked all the boxes.
Yeah,
here.
they've nailed
it's kind
it.
of when people meet you for the first time.
Yeah.
Oh,
the
this
opposite.
guy's much nicer than I thought he was going to be.
Whereas the Golf, on the other hand, suffers from that. This is just as good as I expected it to be.
Yeah.
Like I expected it to be great, it's great.
Yeah.
So it lacks that kind of surprise and delight
factor.
feature.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But again, that's not to disparage it. It's a great car.
Yeah.
It's an icon for a reason.
Yeah.
I like it doesn't have the tartany style trim, does it?
This one doesn't. I don't think.
I really like those.
No, I couldn't have a Golf
Couldn't have it
GTI without
Without it.
tartan.
Yeah,
Needs
like
the
tartan
Braveheart trim.
I agree.
Scottish heritage.
Oh,
Partly Scottish.
Scottish
Okay.
heritage.
Yeah. Also Italian.
How
but,
much heritage have you got?
I got heaps. I got all the heritage.
Putzmon. Well, we'll thank you, Chesto.
That
we'll
pleasure.
move on. M4.
Yes,
Matthew, you have been driving an Audi.
I have been driving an Audi, the Q7.
Yeah.
Ah, there you go,
Now,
big boy.
you might have noticed that the Q7 disappeared from Australia for a little while. It disappeared because of an emissions system issue where the AdBlue system wouldn't detect if it wasn't AdBlue in the system.
Yeah.
So they had to pull it from sale. It disappeared for nearly 12 months.
Yep.
And now it's back. And there's a facelift coming next year.
Okay.
This model is the existing look, but with a revised AdBlue system or powertrain
Yeah, okay.
system. And they've tweaked a few little things here and there. And it's still one of the most spacious 7-seat SUVs on the market.
Yep.
Largely a product of its immense dimensions.
It is larger. Is it larger than it looks, or is it smaller than it looks?
I think it looks smaller than it actually is.
Yeah.
I think its dimensions are well camouflaged
Yeah.
by its design.
Yeah, so my partner's brother's girlfriend, if that makes sense,
Yeah,
she saw it the other day. She said, that doesn't look like a 7-seater. And that sums it up.
Yep.
It's just one of those cars that doesn't look as big as it is.
So the
Whereas it's
TARDIS,
inside.
the TARDIS
It's
factor.
TARDIS.
Its
Yeah.
predecessor,
Yeah.
everyone called it the QE7
Oh, it was
because
massive.
it just looked so enormous.
Bulbous.
Yeah.
Yeah, but this thing, it's got 7 seats, obviously. All 5 of the back seats have child seat anchor points, which is
there you go.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yep,
Great
yep,
flexibility if you are a parent.
Yep.
Sliding second row seats, electric folding rear seats.
Yes.
And I mean, I have no kids. I was driving it by myself most of the time, but I still found it quite pleasant.
Yeah.
And I think actually, if I remember correctly, it's ISOFIX points in each of those
Yes.
5-seat
Yep.
positions as well, not just a top tether.
Yeah,
It's
it's
ISOFIX.
both,
Yeah.
both for all 5, which is amazing.
Does that
pretty
mean
good.
that they can't really take a trick at the moment, Audi? Does that mean that car's come back just in time to essentially go and run out for the facelift?
Yeah.
geez
So
Louise.
I think second quarter is when the facelift will arrive. So it's bad timing.
Bad timing, yeah.
But better to have one than not have one.
Yeah,
I mean, the
absolutely.
sales of Q7 have dropped about 40% over the year.
Of course.
So they've had a minimal amount of stock that they could sell,
Yeah.
and now it's officially back on
They've
sale.
been,
so.
cut off at the knees because they've had minimal supply of A1 and Q3.
Yeah.
Q7 disappeared. They're
Yep.
about 25% down year on year.
Yeah.
Everything
so-
was held up.
Yeah. So-
But if you're in the market for one, that means a good time to go and bargain for this one before the new
Exactly.
one gets
So-
here.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll chip in with
What have you been
a
driving?
quick one on the Hyundai Ioniq.
Yep.
It's an electric premium model.
Yep.
So it is around about 50 grand.
Yep.
It's $49,000 odd dollars before you put it on the road. And I really am a fan of the Ioniq. I think as a concept, in that it's been launched in 3 different models,
Yep.
electric, plug-in hybrid and non-plug-in hybrid. This one has a pretty handy range, 180 to 200 kilometres in normal use is what you're looking at. Thing it reminded me of, though, is spending a few days on end in an electric car is it's perfectly comfortable. It's surprisingly comfortable, but it's not engaging as a drive as you'd like it to be. For someone who likes driving, put it into sport mode and it gets a little bit more of a spring in its step.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm just too connected to internal combustion
Sound,
engines, that do give a car a certain sense of soul or
Yeah.
enhances that movement.
It does feel. I drove it last night,
Uh-huh.
and it does. There is a shortcoming with electric cars in that they do feel more appliance-like.
A bit,
I think.
Yeah.
There
That
are
one especially
characterful.
because the interior is a bit blah as well. You know, it doesn't lack some of that.
I actually think that the way that they've changed that media screen,
Mm-hmm.
the old one felt a little bit better for some
Yeah.
reason. It was just a little bit easier to use.
Yeah.
This new
I
one,
think it's
it
the
takes a bit of
biggest
learning.
screen to have ever appeared in a Hyundai from memory. I was
Yeah.
actually on the launch of that car, and I
Okay.
took the electric up and down the Old Pacific Highway, which wasn't technically on the drive program, but we were driving past it, so we thought
Yeah.
we'd just give it a quick have a look. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
that is the best driving car of the 3, the electric, and I
Okay.
think it must have something to do with the
Battery,
lower center
low
of
down,
gravity,
yeah.
and it just feels hugs the road a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 aren't as good, aren't as sort of invigorating on a
Yeah.
twisty road. So actually, it acquits itself pretty well around corners, but I absolutely take your point that it just lacks a bit of the. Again, I'm going to use that term again. The fizz, the Jeremy
Yeah.
Clarkson fizz that comes along
that's
with
right.
driving
that's
a car
right.
at
So
pace.
perfectly capable. I really like the point, appliance-like.
Yeah.
As opposed to and lacking the fizz, but there it is.
Yep.
So, speaking of fizz, speaking of someone who can deliver it
No
in
shortage of
spades,
fizz.
it's time for MuskWatch. Right. So, first of all, we've had a catastrophic failure in
Ooh,
SpaceX. SpaceX's first full-size Starship prototype has suffered an anomaly in pressure testing. And we'll have, for people watching on YouTube, we'll have vision of that behind us. The stainless steel... Now, this is reported by space.com, but various ones were all over it overnight.
Yeah.
The stainless steel Starship Mark 1 experienced an anomaly during a cryogenic pressure test on Wednesday. And basically, it looked like something I'd made, with the MIG welder, getting some propane put into it because it's going to run the barbecue and just going kablooey. The top literally blows off it. And there's just steam or whatever it is, some kind of stuff just vaporizing out into the atmosphere for a long way. Yeah, a very public failure on that one.
Catastrophic failure.
So SpaceX will, quote, now focus on developing more advanced prototypes rather than repair and retest the Mark 1, company founder and CEO Elon Musk suggested via Twitter this afternoon.
Good idea.
I would say repairing the Mark 1 prototype
Was
would
impossible?
be... Yeah.
You need a
That'd
lot of
be the
glue.
bigger challenge.
A lot of glue.
All right, now...
Jesse, can I ask you one SpaceX question? Because I don't quite get this. Where is the money coming from this? He's not actually selling anything with that program at the moment, is it? It's all
there are
investor
some
cash?
connections with NASA. There are some other deals that have been done that would be giving that money, that business cash.
But there's no like retail side of that business yet, is there? It's all coming from
if you wanted to buy a
background
rocket,
cash.
I reckon you could pitch up
Hey,
there
do a
and make
deal.
an offer.
Or maybe I do want to
There'd
buy
be a
one.
few out on the
Is there
forecourt.
What's the affordable?
They have a few on the forecourt: balloons, streamers, bunting.
Big blow up.
Yeah,
waving
that's
man.
it. The blow up guy. Yeah,
Closing down sale.
used.
Yeah.
Used demo. Never been out of this orbit.
One owner.
Only
Yeah,
failed
one-
once.
Only lightly blowed up.
Yep. So then the other big news is that as we're recording this, in just a few
this is big
hours, the Cybertruck, as in the pickup, you call it what you like, is going to be unveiled at SpaceX's forecourt with some of the used rockets either side, and we will have details of that on our website, so people that are listening or watching will be able to go there and find out what it's like. My take is, I haven't seen it, but I don't like it.
Already don't like it.
I've already made my mind up. But as I say, should go to the website for.
I did ask
info
for
on
some
that.
early doors information from Tesla on that, and they said absolutely not.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So
No
but
chance.
it is on the website as of now.
But
so
that's only
please go
because it
check
was
out.
you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, as
that's
opposed to
right.
anyone else, probably got chapter and
that's
verse
right.
on the thing.
Yeah.
So there's that, and we're going back to spacey stuff. Satellite pollution is now a genuine thing. And Forbes has been reporting on how Elon Musk can fix the damage his Starlink satellites are causing to astronomy. So the story on Forbes is all about when things aren't regulated, people who see an opportunity have an opportunity to go in and just make the most of
They
it.
take advantage.
Before a government or some authority regulates what it is. So at the moment, you just get that feeling. Here are literally hundreds of satellites, albeit small ones, going up into space.
Yeah.
And who is saying yay or nay on
Who owns
any of that?
space?
Now,
Yeah.
I think we've covered that before. There is some kind of sign-off. But the unintended consequences are substantial. So in astronomy, the greatest resource of all is a dark, clear night sky, humanity's window to the universe. Traditionally, its enemies have been turbulent air, cloud cover, and artificial light pollution, but very recently, a new type of pollutant has begun to pose an existential threat to astronomy itself.
Wow.
Mega constellations of satellites. If Elon Musk's Starlink project continues as it has begun, it will likely end ground-based astronomy as we know it.
Wow. And so
So-
Starlink is this internet service that he wants to run from
To bring
over
the web
world.
to the masses.
Yeah.
Yep.
So make it easier for people to get high-quality access to the internet.
Wasn't Facebook involved in that at some point too? Weren't
I'm
they
not sure.
floating internet balloons over places?
I actually
It sounds like a fairly rudimentary approach to the problem, but anyway.
I admire the tenacity of this project,
You're right.
but yeah, you've got to be held accountable. If you're ruining
agree.
the nice view of the night sky.
Problem is regulation
Where's my
is
romance
always
gonna go?
retrospective,
Well,
isn't it? That's
from
the
the
problem.
from the darkest skies you can find on Earth, approximately 9,000 stars are visible to human eyes, down to a visual magnitude of plus 6.5, whatever that means, the limit of human vision.
Yep.
Yet, the first 122 satellites launched by Starlink are not overly brighter than the majority of these stars. They move quickly throughout the sky, leaving trails that pollute astronomers' data.
Oh, good.
So there are 4 different ways that this can be fixed. Deorbit the current batch of Starlink satellites.
Yeah, that won't happen.
And place a moratorium on launch of new ones. Either redesign or coat the satellites to significantly reduce their reflectivity. Sounds like an idea,
That
but
could work, yeah.
maybe that was thought of already. Provide real-time trajectory plans, predictions, and adjusted information for each satellite for observatories worldwide. Provide funding to assist astronomers in the development of hardware and software-driven solutions to subtracting out as much of the satellite pollution as possible. So, you've got all of these observatories and they're, I'm sure, doing very good work and blah, blah, going, I can't do this anymore.
To be honest with you, space just feels like another thing we're ruining, doesn't it?
We'll have an image, we'll have an image for those watching, a NASA image of how much stuff is out.
It's
in
amazing.
Earth orbit.
Yeah, the space jump.
It is
they call
quite frightening.
It's
space jump.
unbelievable.
All right, so that moves us on to the share price. It's gone up again. So for the 4th straight week, there's been a rise. It was $354.83, which was a rise of about $5 on last week. And CNBC is saying that the Cybertruck could send the stock back toward all-time highs. Option traders are saying this could be a pivotal moment and it will send it right up there. And I think all-time highs were pushing 400 or thereabouts.
We've got to be realistic, He's showing off a car or a vehicle that won't meet production, if it does, until, 21?
2021.
My take on this is that the whole share market, some people are informed, but there are a whole bunch of punters out there that may as well be on the racetrack.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And they hear a good, you've got to get your money on this. Whooshka, they're all over there. There's a lot of that.
You could track Tesla's share price rises to Elon's tweets. That was
precisely.
all it took to push the number up. It's incredible.
And he got in trouble for it.
But
he did.
But JC, it does feel like for a while there in these chats, it's sort of felt like Tesla could go either way.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is starting to feel more and more like actually.
Elon admitted as much. He said they were, 5 minutes away from having no money.
Yeah.
And the whole thing shutting its doors.
But it does the 3 does kind of feel like it's turned a corner for the brand, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
The Gigafactory in Berlin, Gigafactory in China.
Under his own brand, which no one else gets to do without a joint venture. I don't know how
it could
that's
be
happened.
a very good deal on Gigafactories in Berlin and China if things don't go well. That's the upside.
We could shoot the podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
That move the bunker
in the Gigashed.
Tools in the Gigashed.
In the Gigabunker. I like it.
So the options market is implying a move of about 3.7% in Tesla shares between now and the close, so tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
So that'll be, and we'll be able to watch that with crystal clarity. But with that, we have reached the finish line. Thank you, Chester.
Thank you.
And thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
And thanks, as always, to Mr. Pritchard for his amazing pre, during, and post-production wizardry. I notice it's quite hot in Sydney at the moment. He's wearing a velvet singlet. I think it's merch from the Bhutan national football team.
I think so too, yeah.
Which is generally, I did a bit of research, it's regarded as the worst football team in the world.
Yeah. Oh, I've heard we're going to actually launch this velvet singlet on our CarsGuide merch site, which you can find on YouTube.
Do they not wear pants in Bhutan? Because I noticed that Mr. Pritchard's a bit free.
But they
very
obviously
hot
wear
there.
socks with sandals.
Just the one sock.
Yeah. Okay. Please pass on the word about the podcast and let us know your thoughts by searching for CarsGuide on Facebook and Instagram, using the hashtag CGPodcast, or email us at comments@carsguide.com.au. If you're an iTunes listener, please rate and review us, and remember, you can watch us on YouTube. But before we go, met up with an old mate courier driver down on our driveway earlier this week. Mm-hmm. He was trying to tell a joke, but his timing was awful and he totally stuffed up the delivery.
Oh, God.
Thanks, James.
I like it. I like that one. I'll pay that one.
That was good.